Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. It is Monday night, and it's time for another Sidekick Power Hour with me, your host, Joshua R. Pangborn. Welcome, if this is your first time joining us. This is Sidekick Power Hour, which is the live stream portion of the Sidekick Productions Crewniverse, as we call ourselves. We come to you every Monday night, a few months out of the year, and we bring to you all sorts of things in the realm of queer, fat positive, sex positive, horror, or any combination thereof. We like to talk about what we do at our production company, Sidekick Productions, and then we talk about what some amazing artists and creators in the world are doing as well. We bring on some allies and some people making their own work that is queer, fat positive, sex positive, horror related, or again, any combination thereof. I am so happy to be here with you tonight. This is our second to last episode for season 5 because things are heating up in April, May, June, and July for me, and I won't be able to focus on coming to you with new episodes. So, this week and next week are our last two episodes for the year. Well, no, sorry, for the season. We'll be back probably later this fall, like we usually are, and I can't wait to let you come back and see all the things that have happened this summer. But before then, we still have 2 more weeks to talk about. So I'm really excited for that. We have been a very busy production company the past week. This weekend, some of you may have seen from social media that we filmed a lot of Skeleton Crew season 6. You have probably noticed that I was on set with a lot of people like Ashley Monique Menard, Paul Anzulis, Andrew Carter, and Lisa King, Alexander Dorff, some new faces to the Crewniverse as well. I am really excited for you to see what's going on in season 6. I have very little information that I'm going to tell you because it's all hush hush. But until we get there, you just have to know that I'm really excited for it, and you'll have to wait until this fall to see what's going on. There is a lot going on, though. As always is the case in Skeleton Crew. I mean, we're a very dramatic group in Skeleton Crew, and you'll get to see what we're doing there soon. Hello as well, Beto. We're happy to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you are watching us from Instagram, hello, my Instagram friends. But I will not be able to see your comments until after the show because, for whatever reason, the comments that you put on Instagram don't come to StreamYard, and so I cannot see what you are saying to me. If you want to comment directly, you have to go to Facebook or YouTube. However, if you are going to comment, please leave them in Instagram and I'll see them after the show, and I'm really excited to read them afterward. I am always happy to see what you all have to say. In addition to Skeleton Crew, we were working on a lot of editing for the contract that is coming along beautifully. We have one more day of color grading, and then the movie is ready to go. As far as color goes, I know the composer is hard at work right now on the music and the score for the film. And very soon, the audio person will be wrapping up. I did a lot of Foley work on the movie last week. If you don't know what Foley work is or Foley is, it's basically like the sound effects. And like if you want to make sure that someone hears a door knocking, well, then you have to add a door knocking to it, and that's called Foley. And that is, I did a lot of that last week. It's my first time. I mean, I've done Foley on a lot of our projects, but I've never done it for one of our features. But I'm doing it on this one, I think, and it's kind of fun. I have a good time. It's always interesting when you're like, you can't quite find the sound for oral sex, for example. But because for some reason they don't have a sound effect labeled oral sex in the sound effects library. But so you have to figure out what does that sound like, and then you come up with something that sounds similar. Usually it's usually like slurping spaghetti. That's actually the what I used was slurping spaghetti for this. So very strange to have that labeled that for what I'm doing, but not important right now. Anyway, so we did that. And I also finally got a haircut. It's been a very long few months. But unfortunately, I asked for an inch of hair cut off, and the man was finished, and he said, I just did 2.5 inches. And I'm like, well, that is not what I asked for because I'd like to have at least some semblance of what my hair is supposed to look like between shots. So when you get to Skeleton Crew season 6 this year, you're going to see that for some reason Anthony's hair goes from normal length to this length, and in the span of a few minutes. And that is the joy of independent filmmaking, everyone. Thank you very much. But that was what's been going on in the world of the Cruniverse. I hope that you are all as excited as I am to see all the things coming out. But I am most excited right now to bring on our special guest because I always enjoy talking to people, and I was able to be on this person's show recently, and I had such a great time talking to them that I wanted to bring them onto my show and talk to them again. So, without further ado, everyone, please welcome Steve.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I know who you are, but just in case any of our fans and our viewers don't know, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and tell them what you do?
So, my name is Steve Morey. I am well, I'm a boring person in real life, but in my fun life, I'm a podcaster and big comic book fan. So, you may have run across the podcast that I've been part of since, oh gosh, for well over 10 years now, called the Comic Book Bears. And I also am the host, I'd say sort of like the half host of a horror podcast called The Bear Cave of Terror. And the premise there is, of course, I invite a friend or more than one friend on to talk about their favorite horror movie. And we just, geek out over wonderful horror. Sometimes we focus on the queer aspects of things, which I absolutely love to do. And sometimes we just focus on the fact that horror is pretty cool and can be squishy and gory, or it can be like hilarious, or it can be really thought provoking and spine tingling. And yeah, I like that. And I've been a horror fan forever, probably as long as I've been a comic book fan. So a very long time.
How long have you been a comic book fan? When did you just first read comic books? Like how
Well,
you don't have to tell us the year, but how old were you, would you say?
I probably first saw my first like real comic book maybe when I was 5 or 6 years old, but I
Okay.
only started purchasing comics, or at least when I was before I had an allowance, begging, to get a comic book bought for me, probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And my first comic that I remember purchasing for myself was Classic X-Men number 30, which was a story about
Mm.
the X-Men being captured by Arcade. It was a reprint issue, but the classic X-Men was a great way to read a lot of older stories
Sure, of
from the
course.
70s and the early 80s, with a lot of times new art, with a really awesome cover, which of course, this one was a great, beautiful cover, which featured a very sexy Wolverine on the front. So as a young boy, I was like, I don't know why, but it gives me tingles. Uh, but from then on, I was a comic book fan, and I've been pretty consistently a comic fan, comic consumer and collector for a very long time now, almost 40 years. And horror was about the same time. I started really getting into horror films, mostly because I was an indoor kid. And when other kids were out having a blast in beautiful weather on the weekends, I was inside watching the Saturday matinee specials on the local independent TV channel UHF 17 out of Philadelphia, where they would have all of the atomic monster horror movies like
Mm.
Them, or things like Kingdom of the Spider or Tarantula. Sometimes you would get an even newer, more independent film. Sometimes I actually remember seeing Alien from LA featured, which
Okay.
had the I guess it was an early debut for, was it Kathy Ireland? It might, no, it was another supermodel at the time, but apparently somebody thought she'd be great in a Australian weird sci-fi semi-horror Mad Max-ish movie. Who knew?
I mean,
Um,
everyone's good in those, so I think, but
Exactly. And of course, that led to, really cool babysitters bringing in Friday the 13th movies, or Nightmare on Elm Street films, the glory days of Elvira and USA Up All Night. And of course, the VHS glory, going through the horror section and checking out all the really cool boxes. Even though I wasn't allowed to usually rent them at that age, it gave me
uh,
plenty of ideas. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And also, I am a huge longtime MST3K fan.
Mm.
So, that was another way of being able to see really bad horror, bad sci-fi movies as well. It's always fun when you see something on MST3K that you already have seen sort of straight, actually on TV or on video, and you're like, oh, yeah, it was pretty terrible.
And yet I still love it. So
Yeah, exactly.
and,
There's so much room for bad horror in life
yeah.
and good horror, and it's all what you make of it and all how you take it in. And somebody's absolutely favorite horror movie might be something that someone else hates, but all of it is valid, all of it is awesome, and all of it is wonderful to watch and share with your friends.
I completely agree with you. Everyone watch as much horror as possible, please. So
Yes, and read
it's
comics.
very or read comics. It's very interesting because in my immediate circle of friends, I'm usually considered the comic book expert, but I never started reading comics until my sophomore year, no, my junior year of college. Uh, and yet once I did that, I sort of like did this massive deep dive into comics, particularly DC, and I had literally everything from the beginning of the modern age all the way through the New 52,
Mm.
and then the New 52 happened, and that sort of killed my love of comic. So Didio, no,
Yep,
um,
yep.
but yeah. So it's always interesting for me, and I'm jealous of people who got to start reading them when they were really young because it was just not something that I ever got to do. But I remember my I was in somebody's room working on a project, and they had a giant poster for Identity Crisis, which I know is a
Mhm.
controversial series of in
Yeah.
DC. But I was like, somebody dies in the comic books. I have to see who it is for some reason, and so I got the Identity Crisis books, and then from there I just dove into everything for DC, and that was the fun. I had a lot more experience with horror at a younger age than I did with comics,
Mhm.
but yet both are very closely intertwined. I think in a lot of ways because
They are.
both both allow for very creative stories to be told about society that are told in almost in a veiled way, so that way you don't have to be so explicit sometimes about it.
Absolutely. And horror has always been, just a wonderful genre within both comic and video/film media, just because it's fun. It gets people in, it gets people interested. And those little messages that you mentioned, you can slip them in and you can make people think without even realizing that they're actually, they're being exposed to something that gives them a queer perspective,
Mhm.
especially when you watch monster films, especially when you watch outsider films.
Mhm.
There's definitely, usually a queer undertone that's going on in there. Whether it's intentional or not, you can always read into it a little bit, and especially when it comes to monster
Yeah.
horror movies, there's always something there that maybe you have to already have experienced sort of a queer perspective in your life to see it very quickly. But once you know how to identify those, it's pretty fun to point them out.
But I mean, it's definitely there because you have people. I mean, you had Elvira. I mean, Elvira herself is a queer
Oh,
perspective, and but she was
yeah.
she was hosting all of these things, and I think a lot. I mean, you've got these really over the top, larger than life, very flamboyant men,
Mm,
often. Like Vincent Price's characters are always over the top and delightfully so. I'm watching a lot of Vincent Price movies right now on Tubi, which thank you Tubi for despite maybe we're not supposed to support the owners. Tubi is still a wonderful service because it has so many movies on there, and a
mhm.
lot of them are really delightful horror films. I'm currently doing a massive deep dive into all of the old like 70s Vincent Price era films, and it's just there's so much queerness there that's
Yeah.
pretty delightful. I think.
Absolutely. Vincent Price and Roger Corman working together in throughout the
Mhm.
60s for the Edgar Allan Poe cycle of films. There's some really gorgeous, I mean, just absolutely gorgeous filmmaking going on there. Set dressing,
Mhm.
costumes, and of course, very colorful acting and dialogue that is, it's Vincent Price's specialty in delivering those, but even the group of actors that surround him really do sort of allow him to play in wonderful ways with the subject matter. So, he's just fantastic overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So Beto says that his first love of horror stories was from radio shows at night, which yes, that's another. The radio theater was usually devoted a lot of times devoted to horror, and because those are the fun ones to tell, and plus you get so much good sound design and everything that you can
talking about Foley. Oh yeah,
talking about Foley, which brings back and reincorporation of what we were talking about earlier. Everyone,
yeah.
But no, those horror serials were really quite fun actually, I mean, if you go all the way back to when they tried to do War of the Worlds, some people took them very seriously on these radio broadcasts. So, but I think there's so much power in genre fiction because I mean, to comment on society and get past censors because of it. Because like a friend of mine, and I won't spoil it too much because people are probably still watching it, but a friend of mine was talking to me about the new season of Daredevil. And how ridiculously current and modern the storyline is, and I'm like, how did Disney let this get by? Because it seems a little too controversial for Disney, but it's because it's genre, it doesn't always necessarily read on people's censors, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you could be tuning in for your favorite hyper violent vigilante Punisher, or whatever kind of cool back and forth between Daredevil and Kingpin, or also one of my favorites, seeing the return of Jessica Jones this season, which is really exciting because of course anyway, that was, look it up if you haven't seen it. The first 2 seasons of Jessica Jones are phenomenal, and the comic that it's based on, Alias, is also fantastic, so look up both of those. If you enjoy, I would say, subversive, gritty, and also not exactly super positive. The main character is not always, a good role model.
I might have to suggest you just stop at season 1, everyone. But Steve said season 2, so I always defer to my guest in these things, but also weigh in my own opinions on it. So.
Well, you know what? You can't have too much Kristen Ritter, so.
That's true. That's that's a valid point right there.
Yes.
So you can always go back to Breaking Bad and seeing her as well there. So
yeah. Or the Bee in Apartment 23, I think it is.
Yes.
That sitcom. Yep.
Kristen Ritter. And also Veronica Mars, but
that's right.
She was season 2 of Veronica Mars, and then the film, the special film that fans got commissioned and paid for, basically.
Yes.
But regardless, everyone. So Steve, what do you remember what your first horror movie was? I know you said you watched them, all the old ones. Do you remember what your first one was?
So that goes back a little too far for me to be 100%. So it's probably a series of films specifically.
Fair.
That were kind of my first foray. So Bride of Frankenstein is up there. Not the original Frankenstein, but Bride of Frankenstein. The 1931 Dracula, the Bela Lugosi first Dracula film. So the Universal monster movies, like the early ones there were some of the first that I saw because they were on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You could catch them. They always did repeats throughout the year, and especially around Halloween. And then also probably I would say Tarantula, which was one of those really horrible atomic monster kind of movies.
No, there were
giant fire.
I remember. I think one of the first ones I watched was on TNT, and it was Them.
Them with the giant ants.
Yep, the giant ants one.
Also interesting, I also did see The Amazing Colossal Man was one of those early horror films, which I don't know if that awakened anything particularly in me, but when the main monster is basically, his name is Glenn, by the way, when the main monster is essentially just this growing man who's wearing a surprisingly large loincloth, being 50 feet tall, I think it had kind of the same effect as maybe many adolescents saw when they first saw the was it the 50-foot woman? So
Most likely.
yeah,
But there's nothing wrong with that. We all
no.
love a man towering over us. So, but
It's
again,
one,
I'm
you
5 feet
it's one
and
option.
I'm 5'3", so everyone towers over me. So I mean, I'm used to it. So,
Yep.
uh, that's those are so you had some of the classic
Hmm.
horror, which is always fun to have, I think.
Oh yeah.
Um, when did you ever fall out of love with horror at any point, or have you been dedicated to it since a child?
I've been dedicated since I was a kid. Obviously, the reason I saw a lot of the classic horror films because, well, those were the ones that I could watch, that I was allowed to
Sure.
watch in the house because they were black and white. They were, 50 years old or 30 years old at the time, so it was kind of like, they're harmless. Not a
Nothing black
problem.
and white can be dangerous.
Exactly. Or it's like, oh, it's the Blob, but from 1950 something, 1958. So,
Exactly.
not too crazy. But then, of course, I started being introduced more and more to more modern horror, and of course, some the cool babysitters when I was, oh gosh, like 7, 8, 9 years old, bringing over videos of the latest horror that was popular, the Freddys, the Jasons, the Michael Myers, those kind of more modern slasher films, which I had never been exposed to before. Those I started watching a lot more, and then of course, just getting into whatever crazy horror that I could find at the video store, whatever kind of schlock they had on USA Up All Night on Friday and Saturday nights. Absolutely, like all of it. Oh, Full Moon Entertainment, Puppet Master, and Subspecies. Just loving all of those. So,
I'm jealous again because my parents never went out, so I never had babysitters, and so no one. I never had that experience of someone bringing me something to watch and enjoy together. But to have your childhood.
oh, I'm sure there were some like less pleasant parts of my childhood, but the good memories I have are a lot watching way too many horror movies at my age. And of course, I just kept that love growing up all through high school, college, everything. I had this thing where for about 2 years in college, I lived a block and a half away from this really huge independent video store called Movie Land, and I would
Mm.
just go down the aisle and pick up like 3, 4, 5 videos at a time, for $1 each because they were older horror movies, and then take them back to my apartment, blast through them, and then do it again the next week. And yeah, it was always fun. Plus, Friday or Saturday nights with friends, having them all over at the house, watching some kind of schlocky, whatever horror movie I found at Blockbuster that week. Good memories.
Those sound amazing. Yeah. I'm super jealous. No. No, but I think that's awesome. I think that yes, Jennifer remembers the glory of the video store days.
100%.
They have a few, like New York City actually has one or two of them that have
Mhm.
propped up a little bit here and there. So they still exist. But it's in that sort of like niche retro sort of like it's so
Yeah.
cool to have a video store kind of thing. Uh, the nostalgia bucks basically. So
Yeah, yeah, and
but that's
the
okay.
thing about, yeah, oh, it's wonderful, and like there's something very tactile about a VHS tape. There's something about the
Mhm.
sounds, the expectation of the picture quality, which not great. But there's just something about a VHS tape that I think really hits that nostalgia nerve for a lot of people. But physical
Yeah.
media is important. It's important to support a lot of these artists and these small studios and these small distribution companies that are taking the time to release a lot of these, especially horror movies, classics from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, these obscure movies that maybe were only available on VHS for years, and now you can't even find them on streaming. Some of those are being revived by
Yep.
distributors like Vinegar Syndrome or oh gosh, um, oh, we just talked about this actually on a recent episode where Bill Zanowitz, who is the founder of Comic Book Bears, one of the founders of Comic Book Bears, and also my executive producer on Bear Cave of Terror. We had talked about the film Grizzly from 1976, which was like the
Mm.
first real, theatrical Jaws ripoff or Jaws
Mhm.
exploitation film, just recently had a brand new release back in 2015 on Blu-ray and 4K. 4K Blu-ray. So it's there are distributors out there that realize, hey, people are looking for this horror. People are
Mhm.
looking to find this and own, these films, which is good. We need to support that. If we got video stores, for nostalgia, great. But see if they can also order some discs for you if you like,
Yeah.
or if you do have a VCR, sometimes it's fun to just find those old VHS tapes and you know buy one.
It's
Start your
also
collection.
the aesthetic of the VHS tape and the
Yeah,
box. There's something about it that again, I think it's probably because it's a little nostalgic for all of us, but there's
yeah,
something about it that's just special, I think. But
yeah.
and
Box
also
art. Oof.
again, that's why I sort of like that's why I support something like Tubi, because I mean it is taking
Yeah.
all of these. There's so many old films that are on there from the 30s and 40s and 50s that
Hmm.
other streaming services wouldn't even bother to put on there. You're not going to find that on
Right.
Netflix. You're not going to find that on. You might find some of them on HBO Max, because HBO Max does a really good job at curating some older films like
Yeah.
30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s on there. But Peacock, no. I mean, they don't have these things on there. It's
No.
not something that they think an audience wants, but an audience does want them, and
Yeah.
they need exposure to them to find that. So.
Yeah, I do appreciate those niche streaming services that have been coming out and curating a really good selection of horror films. Some of them independent that you can't see any other way.
Yep.
Some of them that may have been out of print for a while, so newer viewers have had a harder time discovering them. So yeah, I mean, if you can even some that are a little bit more, I would say, classy, like maybe a movie or Criterion Channel, like you can find some excellent horror on there that may be difficult to see any other way.
Mhm.
So 100%.
And I love that your show, you tend to you seem to do a wide range of films on Bear Cave of Terror. It's not all just the contemporary stuff. It's a lot of I mean, I know the movie that we did together was an 80s film, but
Oh yeah.
Grizzly is 70s, I think. And I know that
Yep.
you just did Mask of the Red Death, I think, too.
Yeah, we did Mask of the Red Death, and really, I depend on the guest hosts that come on the show to really kind of share their love, and it's amazing the kind of range of favorites that people have. And so through doing this podcast, I've been exposed to older films. From so far, the oldest one that we've done is 1942's Cat People,
Oh,
which we did
nice.
recently with guest host Rob Stager. And I've also done The Mask of the Red Death as well. That was also Rob Stager. Interestingly enough, Rob's got a really good range of interesting classic tastes there. But also, we even did the original Night of the Living Dead from 1968
Hmm.
with Craig Lance. And, getting to talk about that with somebody, and that was his first horror movie. When he was a kid, that
Wow.
was the first one he ever saw
That's
when he
talk
was.
about a first horror movie.
That'll give you an impression right there when you're a kid. But that just kind of that kickstarted his love of horror altogether. So it was really great talking to him about that. And that's one of those movies that, yes, it's a classic. Yes, it's a black and white film, but it's been reproduced and
Yeah.
restreamed and put through the public, through public common common creative rights for such a long time because of a really interesting little quirk of copyright law when they originally filed for copyright protection on it. They had a different title, and they forgot to, when they changed it from Night of the Flesh Eaters to Night of the Living Dead, they forgot to copyright the new title. And so all of the prints that they had out there, because it started in Pittsburgh, all the prints that they were selling, which they were selling like gangbusters. Everybody wanted to show this film. But then after they realized, hey, it's technically public domain, it got copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. And,
Oh, I did
they,
not know that.
yeah, they missed out on a lot of profit from that. But then also, once VHS came around and home video and DVD, so many distributors and printers could just print them out because, again, there was no copyright protection on the original Night of the Living Dead for decades. In fact, that is one of the reasons why why Tom Savini went and remade Night of the Living Dead in 1990. so that they could.
Mm.
It was an attempt from them to actually, try to regain the rights for Night of the Living Dead. But yeah, it's one of those big mistakes. But I think because it was a mistake like that, that so many people were exposed to this type
True.
of idea, the social commentary kind of horror, at the time, but also throughout the past 50 years.
Yeah. Has there been any films that you've never seen before that you had to watch for your show?
There have been a few, like Cat People was one of them. I'd never seen it. And that one was kind of was really interesting because it's beautifully shot, and I learned a lot reading about it and reading the history about the producer Val Lewton and the studio RKO. So that was really fun. But there's been several. Grizzly was new. I had never seen the original Grizzly. There was let's see, just going through the list. I mean, there's a lot of fun ones. Oh, Fascination. I do have to bring up Fascination. Fascination was brought to the Bear Cave by Sam Lentz, who is one of the co-hosts of Screams from the Basement podcast, and it's something that he found and absolutely fell in love with. It is a French horror film, and it's very, I would say, it's obscure. We've got a snoozing puppy over here. It's obscure, but it's also just beautiful and really, it's almost edges on absurdist, almost edges on a little bit of very, artistic interpretation of what film can do. So
Mhm.
it's not terribly scary, but the visual impact of it is absolutely incredible. And I wouldn't have even known about it had it not been suggested and brought up to me by Sam. So him coming on exposed me to all of the work of Jean Rollin, the filmmaker in France, who sadly did not really get the attention that he deserved until much later in his life, and he's since passed on. And
As is the case for
yeah,
many artists, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, I think one of the coolest things that I read about him was during the premiere of one of his films in 1968. The theater was invaded by massive protesters, not protesting the film, but it just so happened to be during the riots of 1968 with university protesters, union protesters, all of that just kind of running wild through the streets of Paris. And so he he was like, well, I tried. This was the premiere of one of my beautiful films, and it got trashed and ruined. And so, oh well, back to the drawing board. Let's go make some porn, which was his fallback career. He had a very prolific porn career.
I
As a
mean,
director.
that is a profitable business. So
Yeah, and really, he just did that so he could make enough money to make his next horror film. So it's very cool for him. Unfortunately,
don't think there aren't plenty of people out there in the community who do that. So
You know what? Absolutely, and I 100% support them for doing that because there's so many ways to use yourself, your body, your
Mhm.
creativity to express what you want to express, and horror is just one of those ways.
And there's a lot of connection between, I
Mm-hmm.
think, horror and the sex worker industry in
Mm-hmm.
general. I think because there's just a very large connection, I think, between that, which I'm only thinking about off the top of my head right now, so I don't have anything profound to say about it, but other than to point that out, I think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can go back to Jean Rollin. If you look at some of his work, some of the actors that he put in his films were also from the films that he had made for a more mature audience
Mhm.
previously. And they, it shows that the connection between, I guess, non sexualized film and horror, even with the acting styles and the presentation, they're really, there's a lot more connection there. And yeah,
And I
I
think
think
there's something about
it worked
sex
well.
work, when done ethically, that's about taking ownership of your body and taking ownership of your
Hmm.
identity, in the same way that horror is often about uh, the control of the body and the control of identity
Hmm.
and rebelling against society that wants you to conform to it. So I think there's something that's there. I feel if I were still an academic, I would pursue this maybe as some sort of like paper of some kind or something. But
Maybe.
so if you're an
Yeah, but
academic, I encourage you to use my idea and go out and do something about it. So
do it for sure. I mean, there's just so much out there, especially for queer interpretations of horror. I
yes,
mean, there's some obviously there is queer horror that's wonderful and just great to see, independent, and yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, if you look for some of those more obscure titles that are older, you can find not just implied queerness, but absolutely, fully presented on screen in eras and times that maybe that kind of representation was forbidden or canceled and censored. So
I was shocked when I saw a few months ago Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker.
hmm,
Have you seen that movie?
no, I haven't, but the title sounds interesting.
It's a really fun movie, first of all, but there's a gay couple in it, and they're not, and this is like a 1980 film, like 1980
Mhm.
exactly, I think. And there's a gay couple. It's an explicitly gay couple. They are husbands, and they're not presented in any way that's negative,
Mm,
which is a rare thing in the 80s and 70s to begin with. But I was shocked by that. So they do have us in these movies. It's
yeah,
very interesting to see when they
yeah. I
pop up.
mean, trans and drag
Hmm.
representation big in the 70s and the 80s, and even in the 60s you can see some of that, but also in genres that you don't expect. So like black exploitation horror, Blackula #1 features some of the first people on screen is a gay couple
Yep,
with a real estate agent getting to check out, oh, this interesting house that happens to have Blackula living there. But
as it does. So
as it does, it sometimes happens in this market, in this real estate market. Absolutely, that is not a deal breaker.
it is not. If this is houses for sale and I like it, I don't care who lives there. So
Yeah, or how many vampire zombies might be in the basement at any time. It's just
it's
work around it.
fine. It's fine. You just have lots of garlic around. And
Yeah, yeah.
so, what would you say are some when somebody asks you for a recommendation on queer horror? What do you point to often?
That's a hard question because when it comes to queer horror, I do like a lot of more modern queer horror. That's a little bit more obvious, but you have something like the recent it is the recent Night of the Living Dead film, and it's going to drive me nuts that I've just forgotten the title of it because I loved it so much, and it's frustrating putting me on the spot. That's what happens.
That's what I
Um,
do. I like to make
oh yeah,
people put on the spot and frustrate them.
it was the film. Thank
You talk about
God for
Queen
Queens
of
of
the
the
Dead?
Dead.
Yeah, Queens of the
Yes,
Dead.
Queens of the Dead. Absolutely. That movie was fantastic. I want everybody to see it because it was just so much fun. It was done by, I believe it's George Romero's daughter,
Yes, Tina
was the
Romero.
director of it. Yep. And it just has such a great cast and a lot of fun, with the concept of zombies and drag queens and gay communities sticking up for them, for each other and protecting each other, and just I love that kind of community centered
Yeah.
film. And that's always a classic. But also, if you go all the way back, you can think of something like Bride of Frankenstein
Hmm.
is kind of queer coded, so at least some of the characters are. Even going into the 50s, where you had the revived Frankenstein films from Hammer Studios. Curse of Frankenstein, which was one that I was introduced to with Craig Lance when he was on Bear Cave of Terror. That one is very queer coded. Victor Frankenstein, played by Peter Cushing, seems to have a live-in mentor that's been with him since he was a boy, and they do a lot together. And his mentor gets very jealous and protective of him when Elizabeth, his cousin who is betrothed to him, shows up at the door unannounced. There's a lot of interesting coding in there that may or may not have been intentional. But Peter Cushing plays a very twisted evil bisexual in this film. Let's just say,
Everyone loves a
as
good
Victor
twisted
Frankenstein.
bisexual. So
Oh yes, playing playing the affections of all genders. He does it very well, and also creates a monster played by Christopher Lee. So but yeah, I mean, I would look at some of these films, and looking at them critically is always a good thing to do. But sometimes just sit back, let the film wash over you, and take from it what what you feel, like what you see, and just think about it. Chew on that later, and see how it feels for you. Especially where you might be able to see something that's a little bit queer, or unexpected.
I think it's especially important for people to take a chance on older films too, because there's a lot to see in them that you might not recognize just because they're old, older or old even. But
Well, think about filmmakers today, reference a lot of these older films.
they
And,
really do. They really, really, really do. And there's a lot to reference. But I mean, even if you go to Night of the Living Dead, I mean, uh, they're coming to get you, Barbara is used all the time. It's everywhere. It's always used. So, uh,
definitely. I mean, that's, you could say, I'm coming to get you, Barbara, every time you are going to pick up a friend for drag brunch. So,
absolutely, I think actually. Do you have you seen anything recently that you've enjoyed? That's new? Any new films that you've been to the cinema to see, or?
absolutely, I have. Although I will, I'm going to plagiarize a friend of mine, also from Screams from the Basement, Casey Kellerman, in saying that one of his favorite recent genres is Samara weaving covered in blood. And
It's a
there
good
absolutely
genre.
was. It is surprisingly robust of a genre. And one of the latest entries was Ready or Not 2, which, if you like exploding Satanists, it is perfect for you. Or women getting very violently hurt, but really punching through the pain. So it
It's a
depends on
great
how you
film.
want
It's
to
a lot
take
of
it.
fun. That I didn't think they needed a sequel, and
No,
they still showed that there's a reason to make it. So
absolutely. And I also did see another film that's very much in that same wheelhouse. They Will Kill You.
yes, yes.
That was also a ton of fun. It was like, what if Tarantino and oh gosh, if Tarantino decided to make a blaxploitation movie mixed with the cult films of the '70s, just thrown together, and with a very unexpected ending, I should say.
Unexpected everything.
Unexpected
Every part of it.
everything. Yeah,
Um,
the trailers do not tell you the whole story, which is good
uh,
and wonderful
yeah.
these days.
Because after unless I won't spoil anything except to say
Mhm.
after the first 10 minutes, I was like, some of these names that I know are in this movie. Wow. Okay, that was a lot of effort and money to put into this movie. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
That
Yeah.
was my reaction to that. So.
Faces of Death. I actually the sort of the revival, or I should say the commentary and study of the idea of Faces of Death. That film.
I just
I
saw
saw
that
that.
last week.
Yep,
It's
exactly.
interesting. It's a very interesting. It's that's creating a new subgenre of horror as well, which
Hmm.
is sort of like the modern reinterpretation of a film as the sequel. Because
Yeah.
it was I the whole time I was watching it, I'm like, this feels very Human Centipede 2. Uh,
I'm not going to say you're wrong. Absolutely not. It's very interesting. It may not have been necessarily my cup of tea, but I know plenty of people who really would throw themselves into that, and really take to that film. And then one that I'm looking forward to that's opening this week, at least in parts of the U.S., is Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
yes, that
Um,
looks ooey gooey delightful. So
oh yeah. And anytime that there's like long, weird fingernails that are going to be pulled off somehow, I have to watch it.
I do love the past few years. It feels like every week there's a horror movie coming out in the cinema, and
Yes.
I'm very grateful
Yeah.
for that because for a while they didn't have that. I don't remember that being a thing, but
Hmm.
people are finally realizing in Hollywood that horror sells tickets basically.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was kind of like the dearth in the '90s for actual horror that made it to the cinemas, there really
Yeah.
wasn't that much. If you weren't a Child's Play sequel or, another sequel for Halloween, you're not really playing much in theaters until Scream hit. And then after
Yeah.
Scream, you had the glut of, crazy, sarcastic teen horror films that just sort of one after another.
Or just anything Wes Craven wanted to put his name on. So.
Oh, yeah. Which, at the time, absolutely, I totally support.
That's how we got Wishmaster. So
yeah, or John Carpenter actually, not being scared to put his name on things after, a run of unsuccessful films in the '80s that I still think are absolutely brilliant.
Well, of course, but that's John Carpenter is an interesting man to watch do interviews. So
yeah,
we'll leave it at that. I think for
yes.
that. Is there anything you're looking forward to this year then, besides The Mummy coming up?
I'm literally just taking it as it comes. I mean, there are, there's definitely more sequels in the works for things. There's another Paranormal Activity that's coming out at some point. We've got more interesting indie horror that's coming out as well. The one thing that I'm not looking forward to, and, I'll probably still see it, is a revival / remake of the original Blair Witch. Not necessarily looking forward to that. Yeah. But, hey, they could be doing something amazing with it. And even if I don't like the new one, there's always the original. It is still available to view. So
my dirty secret is I've actually never seen the original because I'm just so... because I know everything about it, I feel like I have no desire to watch it because of that. I'm also my other thing about horror is the only subgenre I really just don't enjoy is found footage, and that is, I know, something that is very anti most people in horror because everyone loves a found footage, but for me, it's very hard for me to enjoy a found footage film.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good found footage, or
there is good found footage. I will say I agree with you. It's just for me, I find it to be a genre that I feel is more contrived than anything else. Like,
yeah, it needs to be put together in an interesting way or a different way. I like what came out last year, I believe, is Shelby Oaks. That was one that, to me, it blew me away. I know that it had been workshopped a lot, that it was different from the original independent feature that had been, I believe, kickstarted. But
I think so, yeah.
But I thought that was fantastic, Shelby Oaks there, because it did blend, especially at the beginning, it blended found footage. It also blended sort of like mockumentary style segments, and then flipped into a purely narrative driven film. And so it kind of took all of those elements that we've seen a lot of and put them together in a really interesting way. So that I thought
for those of you who haven't seen Shelby Oaks, I believe a former guest on the show, Roger Connors, has a part in Shelby Oaks. So,
cool.
And if you don't know Roger Connors, he is a person who created many horror films, including the most recent one, which is in the festival circuit right now, Meat, which is a very, very queer slasher film. So, have you seen Meat yet, Steve?
I have not, but now it is on my list.
Meat and Hollow Lake are both two queer, very, very brutal queer horror films that are out. I know them very well because the person who filmed and is editing my movie, The Contract, shot both of those movies. So
great!
I have many conversations with him about them. So,
well, I'll definitely be checking those out for sure. There are some other horror films that are coming up that have maybe a bit of a queer tint to them, even though they may be a little bit bigger or have some bigger names attached to it that you wouldn't really expect. But Michaela Cole has a new film that's coming out with Anne Hathaway, of all things, and it is
that Mother
Mary, and
Mother
that
Mary.
one. It's the way that's being presented is, I think it's kind of playing with the idea of genre a little bit right now, but from everything I've read about it, it is a true horror film. So I'm looking forward to that one as well, to see how well Anne Hathaway does with that. But also I know Michaela Cole is a genius, so
I am a fan of Anne Hathaway. I do like her as an actress. So
yeah. but seeing her in like a pure horror film. Oh, and there is also the other one, the sort of possibly connected to Cloverfield, the end of
Oh yes, the
Oak
house at
Street.
the end of Oak Street or something.
Yeah, something like that. Which also has Anne Hathaway. So she's in 2 horror movies this year. Interesting, or 3 if you count Devil Wears Prada 2.
I mean,
horror of a different bent, but yeah.
I will say that people are just gonna no one's gonna be happy with Devil Wears Prada 2. I already know how this will go. Even if it's a decent movie, people will not be happy with it. So
I can tell you that they will be quoting it for the next 20 years as well.
Yes,
so
yes, they will.
It'll be great.
But,
it'll be great.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of this. It's always good for horror and all. But so I know that you are traveling next week to a horror festival, correct?
That's correct. So Screams by Night and Comics by Night are both hosting the Screams from the Basement and Comics by Night are hosting Screams by Night halfway to Halloween Con in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I was invited up there by my friends who have been on the podcast. Actually, all of them have been on the podcast in one respect or another with their favorite films. And I'll actually get to go up there and enjoy the vendors that they have, the guests that they've invited, some of them from classic 80s schlocky horror films like Sorority Massacre or what was it? Hollywood Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama, I believe, is going to be one of the featured films there. So I'm excited for that. It'll be a lot of fun. And also, it's the first time I've ever gone to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So could be a really fun, exciting time.
So if you're in or around South Dakota next week and you want to meet Steve and do some horror fun, you should go to this festival.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of horror cons and horror festivals. I think people should go to them, and you get to find a lot of amazing independent artists there and independent films playing. I know that Troy Escamilla, who was another guest on the show last year, he runs Houston Horror Festival in August. So cool. And that is an amazing festival for both horror actors and performers, and also to see a lot of amazing horror films. So these kinds of things are great. They're out there, and you should go to them because you get a lot of fun, and you get to experience things that people won't see sometimes outside of these things.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun, horror festival, horror convention for me. It's just a one day at the Social in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But there's, tons of these across the country. It's always good to go and support them. If you're in a city that has a Mad Monster party, if you're in the city that has, even some of the, I guess, more, more corporate run ones do also have quite a bit of horror draws to them. So a lot of actors and directors and writers and, makeup artists even, going and getting to see makeup demonstrations is fantastic and wonderful to see because, again, practical effects and, practical makeup effects are extremely important. And it is an art that needs to be protected and supported and flourish all across film and TV and stage, because it's amazing. The people who can do that have so much talent.
And everyone on the show knows how much I am a proponent of practical makeup effects and how we have an in-house makeup artist thanks to Paula Anzulis. So for sure, it's something I value and encourage a great deal. So, so Steve, we are actually out of time. My goodness. Where can people listen to Bear Cave of Terror?
Well, you can find us on all of the podcatching platforms, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well. I actually do, with Bear Cave of Terror and Comic Book Bears are available at Comic Book Bears on YouTube. But also you can always catch me on Instagram or Blue Sky at Bear Cave of Terror. Or on Facebook, you can actually go through Comic Book Bears podcast and drop me a line there as well. Because again, we all work together. Bear Cave of Terror is a presentation of Comic Book Bears, so we share a lot of the same information in socials. But yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to listen to all of our previous episodes, they are available online.
including an episode with me, which you want to go and listen to. It's
Oh, yeah.
a wonderful episode about the film Society, which if
Yeah.
you don't know anything about Society, well, you're in for a treat.
You'll get to know the meaning of the word shunting.
Deeply understanding that word.
Yeah.
So I encourage you all, though, if you follow Steve, you get not one but two amazing genre-based podcasts. If you love comic books, which most of you probably do, if you love horror, which some of you might, go follow Steve. And also Steve is they're big proponents of talking about bear related things on these things, because
Absolutely.
Steve and his co-hosts generally are bear related. So so if that's something that's special and important to you, that's more reason to go and follow Steve. But
yeah.
Steve, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I
always hate how fast an hour goes by. It's yes. Amazing. I'm talking, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It is 8 o'clock, and now it's 8:02. And how did that happen? Because we had such a good time. But everybody, I'll be back next week. It will be our last show of season 5 because, as I said, April, May, June, July, Josh is going to get really, really busy. And I am really excited for all that, but it's just I won't be able to be here every week. So I will miss you all for a few months. But you know what? I bet in June at least there's going to be at least one special episode when we have a little show called The Art of Blowing It coming out. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, have a wonderful week, everybody. I'll see you soon. And again, thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you. And goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
And that's the tea.